Hi guys, a bit of a different one again. This is slightly different in that I'm going to create a video from still pictures. What I did way back is I built what you might call a kit car, and it was actually a Porsche 911 Turbo Replica, and it was the flat nose model, not the one with the old, as they are now, headlights up. This was a flat fronted one with pop-up headlights. DP Motorsport and Dage Motorsport in Germany, I believe, used to build them, but they were ridiculous money, sort of £100,000 back in the 1980s. I know it was 86 when I built it because I got it MOT'd on the 13th of March 87, which was the day that my son was born. So that's a memorable moment I'll never forget. Sorry Rich, but yeah, cars. So what I did do when I built it, and obviously at that time I think there were hardly anything, even computers. I'm not sure if at work they had something like an IBM with a green screen, but there were no YouTube, internet like now, there were nothing. So I just took loads of photographs when I did it, and obviously I never thought that I'd ever sort of put it on any website as such. So what I found all the photos the other night. I was digging them out, having a bit of a nostalgic do of all my old cars, of the pictures I did have of my old cars, because I've had a lot of old cars and some nice ones, but mainly bangers and things. And I can't leave, I never could leave anything alone. So my old cars always ended up with a different engine in or whatever, and wide wheels, lowered suspension. But I decided to build this Porsche. Any of you know anything about the old kit cars, they'll remember a name called Covin. They were in South Woodham Furrows, which is down in Essex. And I actually went down with a mate with a flatback wagon and picked the body shell up, which were all fiberglass. And there's a bit of a story behind it, because the company called Covin, and obviously ceased to exist long ago that I know of, actually lease hired a Porsche 911 in another country, and they brought it to this country and they stripped it and they took all the fiberglass moulds from the body. So the body were exact identical. So everything off those fit on a 911, as my friend did. He put some wings on, fiberglass. The car that I got was, I say, with the flat nose one with the side skirts and the Dage Sport things, and it came supplied as a body shell, two bumpers of whatever description you wanted. If you wanted the flat nose front, it was a different front bumper. So you got two front bumpers, a bonnet, a boot lid engine cover, two doors, and that was it. You didn't get anything else, that was it. So obviously you had a donor car. Now the donor car they talked about were a Volkswagen Beetle. So I looked around for a rust-free or rust floor or free floor Beetle. I wasn't bothered about the body, it was the floor, to use the floor pan. And I managed to get hold of a 1968 one from a scrapyard in West Yorkshire in Castleford. I paid £85 for it, and it was a 1600 twin port Beetle, which is the engine I wanted. But of course, like I say, I can't leave out alone. So as you'll see in the description, that the engine ended up being something completely different to a Volkswagen Beetle 1600. Although I can say in defence, I did keep the original Beetle gearbox, which ended up being way too low geared. And I could harp on all night about this car, because I did a lot of homework on it and a lot of work building it. I went to, down past South Wales, way down past South Wales to Exeter, would have been Exeter, for all the glass, because the glass from a 911 Porsche fit the car, because it was an exact replica. And I bought all the glass from them, apart from a couple of bits which I ought to order new. So we're all 911 glass. I went to a scrapyard, and for £50 they let me take anything I wanted off a Rover SD1. So I took the electric window motors, the mechanisms, lots of switches and things, any relays I could get my hand on, and the whole wiring harness out of the car, which the Rover V8 SD1 had a flat ribbon wiring. They're all in rows. There wasn't in a harness, it was flat and it was under the floor. And I spent pretty much all afternoon carefully taking out that wiring harness. And then I made that wiring harness suit the car that I built. So yeah, there were a lot of work in it. The headlight motors I used were TR7 motors. However, the hinge mechanism wasn't. That they were something else, and I suppose I've got to tell you now really, the hinges that lifted the headlights up, I didn't want the headlights to do that. I wanted them to come up and back and down, like so they dropped into the body, so they weren't stuck right up in the air. And I went for some new bearings for a service washing machine to one of these shops, and the guy said, yeah, I've got those bearings. And I said, well, I think I took a belt as well. And as he walked off into the back to the storeroom, there was a washing machine and the door were open, and he kicked the door shut as he walked past it and walked off, but the door didn't latch, and it slowly swung back open. And I watched it and saw how the door swung open, and I thought, that's it. So when he came back with the bearings and the belt, I said to him, do you have any of those hinges on those doors? He says, yeah, we keep them in stock. They're cast aluminium with steel pin. I said, have you got 2 sets? And he said, yeah. So I bought 2 sets off him, cheap as chips at the time. I don't know how much, but they were cheap. And they ended up being the hinges that pivoted the headlights on the car. You won't see any video of that. You'll only see pictures, because I never had a video camera or anything like that. Didn't have a mobile phone, had nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook all the pictures up of the build from seeing what's left of a Beetle that one Saturday afternoon I took a hacksaw and a hammer to, right through to the finished article. And all I can do is see if I can somehow hook a microphone up to the editing software and talk over the pictures so that I can explain what I did and how I did it. Because this thing, a Porsche 911, is 6.5 inches wheelbase shorter than an old Volkswagen Beetle was. So the first thing that had to be done is the floor pan had to be chopped in half. You didn't cut it straight across, you cut a shape out of it. I will draw that on one of the pictures and you can see it, so you can actually see where I welded it back together. But I was never happy with it, so I actually built another chassis and welded it to the bottom of the Beetle chassis to stiffen it up. Although the company that made them said they were quite ample, there was nothing wrong with using a Beetle floor pan, which I'm sure they want. Beach buggies on it did that, didn't they? But I really wanted it a bit more stronger, if you like. So I've probably gone on enough introduction, but this is just an introduction to the video that you're going to see. I hope you like it, guys, because it's something a bit different. I'm saying engineering and stuff, but there was a lot of engineering in it. Even the front suspension, you know, when I built this car, it went up in the air, so I had to lower it all. And by doing it, I actually chopped the torsion tubes in half, and I made a spacer unit in with a bolt and wedge idea that got hold of the torsion bars inside the tube and rotated them so I could lower the car or lift it up to get my right levels. And the back suspension, that took forever to get it level, but we did, and you'll see the pictures. I hope you like the little video. I don't know how long it'll last, probably not that long, but just something a bit different, guys. I hope you like it, and thanks in advance for watching. Hiya guys, I've actually edited this bit in because I'd forgot loads of things to say before I showed the photos and the talk over of what I actually did when I built the car. I've made a few notes. There were some issues. One was the engine. Now, you're going to see the engine eventually, but I'm sure some of you might have already guessed. I'll give you a bit of history to this Covin thing. Covin got quite big at one bit, and they actually took on a few companies to build their cars. And one such company were in Halifax at Dean Clough Industrial Estate, which, if any of you know Halifax, is you go over the, you don't go over the bridge, I think you go under the bridge, or do you go over it and turn in, over it and turn in, the big iron bridge in Halifax, and it goes down underneath into a big valley. I'm sure there were a lot of big carpet companies lived down there at one bit, but one of such place was a unit that was building Covin kit cars for Covin, under some sort of license, I guess. And I had reason to visit them, and I don't know why. I just cannot remember what it was. I think I'd ordered a part from Covin, and they said, we can either post you it or you can go and collect it from this place at Dean Clough. And I elected to go and collect it. As I say, I can't remember what the hell it was. It might have been something to do with the door frames. There was something missing from the door frames. They were aluminium. So I went down there one day, but no, it can't have been that, because the car were complete, because I drove the car to Halifax, the Covin, and down into Dean Clough. I can't remember, but I went down there one Saturday morning and met the guys that were building these cars, and they'd got 4 they were building. They'd got some good ideas, and one of them, well, before they put the windscreen in, they built the dash. They cut a piece out the top of the dash, and they did all the wiring for the dashboard, which were a good idea because I really struggled wiring all my dashboard up. But they also cocked up a little bit, and I got offered employment, and I didn't take him on, but I was offered a job there because I drove my car there. And I was stood at the counter talking with this guy, picking up whatever it was. And I looked through and saw what they were doing. And I said, could I have a look? And he said, yeah, come through. And they'd got 4. 2 of them had Golf GTI engines that had been mated up to a Beetle gearbox. And a lovely, beautiful job, Golf GTI, probably 1.8s at that time. And one were an XR3i engine. They were doing ECU and everything, and I can't remember what other. I don't think the other one had an engine in. Whatever, but they were building them for customers. One of them were going to Australia, and it cost a fortune apparently for the crate. He showed me this crate that the car were going to go in, and the wood that the crate's made of has to have a certificate for Australia, because of some sort of bug, beetle, I don't know, whatever it was. But the crate had to be licensed before it could even be packed. It were a right thing. But one went to Australia, which I'm assuming is still there. But I looked at what they were doing, and they'd got one with pop-up headlights like mine, and I said, have you got them working? And he said, yeah. I said, can I have a look? And he said, yeah. So he switched them on, and these headlight pods went, but like up in air. It wasn't like a TVR, believe me. These things were stuck right up in the air, and I said, what hinges have you used? And he said, well, we've just used like big piano hinge, and we've bolted it to underside at wing on resin bolted studs. And I said, all right. And they went up and they went down, and I said, what motors did you use? And he said, oh, we've developed our own. So I said, why didn't you use TR7 motors? And he said, well, I don't know, but we've made our own. He said, they work fantastic, you've just seen them. I said, I have, they're really good. I said, where are they? He said, they're under wing. So I looked under wing, front wing, and on inner wing is a wiper motor off a car with this little short cable coming out of it to a lever that pushed the headlight up and down. And I said, oh, all right. So he said, well, is yours a flat nose? And I says, yeah, I'll show you in a minute. I said, but I didn't do that. I said, I did it. And I started to explain. And I said, do you think that's okay then? He said, yeah. He said, fantastic. I said, have you built one before like this? And he said, no, this is first one. I said, well, you're going to be doing another one because that's no good. And he says, why? I says, have you tried wheels on? And he said, no. I said, well, when you put wheels on and turn steering wheel, where's wheel going to go? And he went, what do you mean? I said, there's a wiper motor there, stuck right out in wheel arch. When you turn steering wheel, it's going to rip it clean off. He looked at me and he went, oh, shoot, I won't swear. Oh, shoot. He didn't say shoot, he said something else with an eye in it. I went, oh my God. He says, well, what have you done? I said, I'll show you. So he come out, did this guy, and he saw my car and he said, wow, that's nice. He said, who painted it? I said, I did. He said, that is lovely. And he was touching it and feeling it. He said, like glass. I said, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. So he said, well, how do your headlights work? I said, I'll show you. So I put my headlights on and up they come and down they went. He went, oh, be hell. Won't swear again. Wow. I said, that's ace. He said, what have you done? So I told him. I went through the whole story. I said, the motors are mounted inboard under the car, nowhere near inner wings. I said, with some levers that come out and rods and blah, 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 blah. And I showed him and he said, wow, I said, I can't believe this. He said, we're going to have to start all over again. I said, well, it's a learning curve, innit? He said, can I sit in it? I said, yeah, of course you can. I said, what seats are them? I said, 924, but I said, the same as a 911. So he sat in these checkerboard seats and he sat there and he got on at the steering wheel and he said, what have you done with rev counter? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, these are genuine Porsche 911 clocks out there. I said, yeah. The whole dashboard, the internals are all genuine Porsche. I said, I bought them off a guy down in Cheshire, Exclusively 9 he's called. And I said, I got the whole dash off him plus some other bits. And he went, so what, have you had the rev counter sent away so that it does different pulses for a 4-cylinder? I said, no, it's still for a 6-cylinder. And he went, well, the read wrong, don't they? The needle's going to be wrong. And I said, no, it's bang on. I said, here, start it up. And I give him a key and he started it up. And he went, Jesus Christ, what's that? I said, it's my engine. Oh. He says, can I have a look at it? I said, yeah. So I lifted both lid up and he nearly collapsed. And he said, you can't fit a 911 engine into one of these Covins without a different chassis and a Porsche gearbox. And I said, yeah, you can. He said, no, you can't. I said, yes, you can. I said, look, we've tried. He said, we've spent months and months trying to bolt a 911 engine into a Beetle gearbox and it just will not go. I says, it does, because I've done it. And he says, well, how the hell have you done that? I says, well, you take a 911 engine and a Beetle gearbox and the 4 studs that the Beetle engine slides into the gearbox on is the same. The stud arrangement is identical. He says, I know that. I said, yeah. So what you do is you get a 911 flywheel, you get a Beetle clutch centre and a 911 diaphragm. Let's get this right, because this was a long time ago. No, you get a 924 Porsche diaphragm. And then you take the centre out of the Beetle clutch friction plate and you take it somewhere who'll do it, which I went to AP Racing. And I said to him, I want a Porsche 911 diaphragm, friction plate bonding to this centre. Can you do it? And they said, yeah, we can do anything. So they made me this it was a 924 clutch plate. It was slightly smaller than 911. A 924 clutch plate with a centre of a Beetle, so that it fit the Beetle gearbox and it fit the 911 engine. Well, of course, that were all done, but then it still didn't go in because you get it in, and me and my brother-in-law, Tony, who I hope you'll see this, Tony, it were about 1.5 inches before it would not go in. So we ended up carefully relieving the inside of the bell housing where the the 924 clutch were catching, or the 911, sorry, were catching the diaphragm. And we eased it and eased it and eased it until eventually the gearbox and the engine mated together. And that's how we did it. So the guy, so he kept saying to me, do you want a job? Do you want a job? Come and work with us. I said, no. So that's the engine to gearbox, that's the headlights, the filler foam, the roof. This thing is double skinned, so they took a mould off the 911 roof, and they'd taken a mould off the 911 roof, inside, outside, and they bonded them together, so it were hollow in between. I thought it drummed a little bit, so we got some long tubes and we threaded them right up from the back where the engine bay were, right up inside to the front where the windscreen were, and we started letting filler foam go gently, gently, gently by pulling the pipes back and back and back, and we literally filled the roof with filler foam, not too much because we didn't want to blow the roof, and it worked. The car was lovely and quiet after that. The engine, so this Porsche 911 engine I bought from this guy in Cheshire, exclusively 9, knackered. I went down and I said, what have you got? And he'd got all sorts of engines, but they were all good and they were all expensive, and I couldn't afford them. I had no money, I was skint, bringing a family up. So, excuse me, he had an engine and he says, I've got one there, complete, exhaust on it, heat exchangers on it, manifolds, blah blah blah, carbs, Solex, I think carbs, they weren't Weber, but they were triple Solex, I think they were. And he says, you can have that for 500 quid, but it's knackered. So I said, wow, what's wrong with it? And he said, one of the big problems with Porsche in the early days, the 911s, which some of you guys are going to know this, when they first built the 911, the oil tank was in the right-hand wing. The engines were dry sump. All 911s are dry sump. And the big oil tank was in the right-hand wing. And you had your fuel flap, and then you had an oil flap. The tank was made out of mild steel, and it was unprotected and uncoated, and they used to go rusty. Now, another bit of history of a 911 engine is, a 911 engine of yesteryear, not now, but of yesteryear, used to take the oil from the tank through an oil, no, not an oil, yeah, it's probably through oil cool, I don't know, but they used to take the oil into the engine. It went round the engine, and then it went back to the tank. When it went back to the tank, it was filtered with a huge filter, big Fram filter. You'll see that in the pictures. You'll see the filter stuck out on the inner wing. And what happened was the tanks used to rust from the inside, and they used to take rust in the engine. And of course, eventually it destroyed them. So I bought this engine off him and a stainless steel oil tank and all the bits and bats off him. Can't remember, it was 500 for engine, I can't remember what I paid him. Went down a little two-wheel trailer and towed this engine back, looked like an aircraft engine, this with cowls on, air cooled. And we brought it home and we pulled the engine apart and I rebuilt it. I got cranked ground, no point in going into that, but I rebuilt the engine and with this new oil tank, which was stainless steel, fitted that in the inner wing. And everything were hunky-dory, it were great. So that is to add on to the video you've just seen, the previous one, because I wouldn't be able to explain it in the pictures. It's something that you'd have to hear from me of what I did. A lot of work. I spent just over a year building this car altogether in a single car garage. Also, I might add, when I painted it, it was 2-pack guards red. And when I painted it in a single garage, I had to be quick. I used my dad's old DeVilbiss gun actually at that time, but I had to start low down on one side and come up and then over onto the roof till I got to just past centre, and then quickly get out of the garage, pull the car out. Got to remember, this thing's all papered up and everything, so no paint would go in car. We pulled the car out, moved it across, put it back in, went round the other side, pulled all the hoses out, carried on with the painting from the roof centre backwards and back down to the side. And it worked. This was a 7'6" wide standard garage that came with this house. But it was stunning. The paintwork ended up absolutely stunning. No runs, no nothing. It was like glass. No orange peel. It looked lovely. And you'll see in the pictures. So again, thanks guys for watching so far. But carry on watching and I'll put the pictures in and try and do a voiceover and explain what I did. Stunning little car. I wish I still had it. I let it go, didn't I? I let it go and I shouldn't have done. I should have kept it. Anyway, that's it. So, this is how it started. An old scrap car, 85. Stripped it to the floor pan one Saturday afternoon. Pulled it all to pieces. And that's what's left of it. Not much really. I pulled the engine out. I sat there. Many years ago. Drive shafts. Gearbox still in the car. And basically a picture of the floor pan there. That's the underside of the car. And you can see where I cut it. That was the cut marks, roughly. And welded back together 6.5 inches shorter than it was as a Beetle. So you'll see if you look closely, you'll see the marks where it was welded both sides. Oxyacetylene from the tool nozzle. Car back together, sort of, with some of the framework on. The body shell sat on some boxes in the garage, ready to trial fit, which we're going to do shortly. That's the body fitted, roughly, again, just bolted, just trial fit. And that's it, sat on its wheels. Very basic really, before we did anything. Dashboard fitted, which bolted in. Just a trial fit again, before we removed it all to trim. That was some painting that I did. All those slats had to be cut out by hand. Painted, that's satin black to make it look like the rubber. And guards red. Again, the bumper made to look like the rubber parts of the bumper in black and the rest in guards red, which took a bit of doing. That's the genuine 911 Porsche clocks fitted, wired up, etc. A leather look, sort of vinyl dashboard. The steering wheel, just some cheap Momo thing I had. I never did get the proper 911 wheel. I never liked them anyway, but anyway. 924 seats in checkerboard, same as 911 seats. Fitted great. 911 engine grafted to the Beetle gearbox with the Solex triple carburetors. Looked like the Webbers, but they sounded well. These cars used to catch fire regularly if you didn't have the air filter boxes right on them. I was okay with it, I never had any problems, but apparently they did set on fire regularly, the old 911s. And that's with the airbox fitted before I put the air pickup pipe on. You can see it's an air-cooled engine, there's no water cooling whatsoever, just an air-cooled engine. Another side picture in the dark. On a front end showing 9 to 8 sort of spotlights fitted that they used to fit with the flat nose. You see my little XR3 in the background. We got married in that. Me and Bev. Some more pictures. You see how the car sits quite square and flat. took a lot of doing actually, adjusting suspension, etc. Picture out the bedroom window. Can't remember where I bought the wheels from, but they were quite big. I think they were 9.5s at the back and 8s at the front. Yeah, it turned out really well. Very illegal, really. A lot of parts on that car, Porsche did. This was a photo we did in the park, and the car at the side of us was a guy that followed me for miles and miles. I'll tell you about that in a moment. The registration number is from the Beetle. A rebodied Beetle it was classed as. No, looks well. How square it is, that took some doing. The Beetle were a lot heavier, so obviously it lifted when I put the fibre body on. Took a lot of adjusting, but we did get it in the end. See the side vents in the wings, same as the Dage Sports and DP Motorsport vehicles. They were sort of around in those years. The door handles, they're just standard Beetle ones painted black to look like Porsche. So this is the guy that followed me. He followed me for miles and miles, did the fella, in a Carrera that he'd just bought. And he wanted to know what model it was because it was, when I told him it was a kit car, he wouldn't believe me. His little lad actually laid under it, looking underneath it, and he actually asked me if I'd build him one, which I declined. Obviously, I wasn't going to build another one. Lights, yeah. See how the lower, the bottoms of the lamps are slightly below the surface, but that's the best we could get, other than them sticking right up in the air, aerodynamically. But they worked out well. Very well. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That's a picture of one for sale. Pause the video and read that. You know, they were, I don't know, they're probably fetching $250,000 now. But that's pretty much a copy of what it was, or similar to what it was. Yeah. A Dage Sport or a DP Motorsport, they were prevalent in those years, long time ago, say 1986, 87. I think I took that picture in something like 1990, I took that picture. Or I cut that cutting out and took a picture of it, of one for sale. Mine obviously wasn't as nice as them, but it looked the part, didn't it? This is my cousin Daz Edwards of Dyron's Motorcycles in Leeds. He asked me where I got a body shell, and he ordered one, and he built a drag car. He was well known in the drag fraternity at Melbourne, New York, and he built this one on a custom chassis that he made, and the floor's all aluminium and the roll cage and everything's all stitched to the chassis, and it's got the proper drag race back end on it, the push-pull end, and he fitted a 350 small block Chevy in the front of the car with alloy heads, Carrillo rods, special pistons. He ran on pretty much a lot of power, and I think he ran, I'm not sure, high nines, low 10 at quarter mile, and he sold it eventually, and then a lord bought it from the other owner, and well, there's a long story behind that car which I won't right now, but what it said is priceless, because there's another one in the world like it, and they were correct, there isn't. So believe after being crashed and repaired again. But yeah, it was a lovely thing when he finished it. Lovely. Here's a Porsche 924 that I got to a 944. If you look, you'll see it's got the flared wings on it, fenders, and I repainted it, which were, it wasn't a guards red, it were a slightly dark red colour. I repainted it as original. But again, nice car, but the Audi 100 engine, I believe they had, they weren't right clever. They were a bit of a swine to start when they were cold. But yeah, see the under tray, that's all 944, back wings, front wings, spoilers. It could have done with wider wheels, and I did eventually do the exhaust system on it. But it was a stunning looking car, painted in, say, nice colour. Again, I'm quite good at painting, so it looked well. What we got next? Yeah, brother-in-law, Tony. I've got to give you a mention, Tony. He bought this as a kit car, and an unfinished project, and it had a Triumph Herald engine in it, and he wasn't happy with that, like me, always wanting to change. So he got hold of a 2-litre Pinto engine, and he grafted it in. He welded and made all his own fabricated engine mountings and gearbox mountings, and he fitted the engine to it. Guess what that car is? Guess, guys. It's a Burlington Beretta. And that's it, finished. It was a stunning car when it was finished. Lovely looking thing. Yeah, he had many an happy hour in that and then sold it on. The car on the right, that's my Cosworth Sierra Sapphire that I had. And that was bought on a closed Ford sale. I had a friend that could buy from him, and I couldn't. And I bought that Cosworth Sapphire Sierra. That were £9,750 I paid for that. It got 30,000 on the clock, and it was the Brands Hatch 1988 pace car, direct from Ford's. It'd been put back to 240 horse or 208 with it, and I re-chipped it and put the new, I think they were grey injectors or green Porsche injectors in it, and I put it back to 310 horsepower. I've got to say that's one of the nicest cars I ever had, until a 15-year-old scrote from Halton Moor in Leeds stole it. A joyrider had his fun and burnt it out to a crisp. Yeah, how sad. This is the car I had when I was 22-year-old. My dad sat in the seat there, see, bald head like mine. But I didn't have a bald head then. And if you zoom in, and I need to know what packet of cigarettes I've got in my pocket. If you can guess, you'll get a prize. Have a go, guys. And what's that car in the background? My dad's car. So you got to guess what that is as well. I know. He had that for some. Anyway, eventually I got rid of that, bought a house, blah blah blah, and changed my car, and this is what I've got right now.